This program offers a look into the lives of 4 Vietnam veterans and their families in the years following the war. The individuals involved are friends of the producers. Bill Davis served in the Air Force January 68 to February 70 and is active in Veterans Affairs. Bill and Joan have been married 6 years and have 2 children. Kurt Holland was in the infantry November 71 to November 72. Whites and blacks fighting side by side didn't change how things were for Kurt back home. Kurt and Lois have been married 13 years and have 2 children. Jerry Shutter was in the Army Artillery July 71 to April 72. This interview was the first time he talked about his war experiences. Jerry and Dory have been married 4 years. Robert Mensch was an Army MP July 69 to September 70. Talking about Vietnam has had a positive effect on his entire family. Robert and Joyce have been married 12 years and have 2 children.
I think people have to be patient with Vietnam veterans. I think they should go out of their way to employ them. I think they should give them every break in the world they can have, because they've really, been through hell, and that they should be respected, and really treated a little special.
These guys are heroes, more so than the guys who fought in Korea and the guys who fought in World War II, because they went over there not knowing why they were going. And they fought hard over there. They came back more scarred, I think, than any of the veterans that have ever gone and came back.
Yeah, I think they're more sensitive and responsible.
He went through escapades that were different than his father's World War II experience. And nobody said, poor Bob. So it's hard. It's hard to cope with that, because the people you're closest to can help or hurt you. And I think this is the first year, and it's 12 years later, that Bob's father ever spoke to him about the war. I finally understand what you were going through, and I think it's terrific.
It was real hard for him, after going through Vietnam, to want to let his emotions out, to show emotion, to have any emotion. I mean, I think what he went through, so much of it was so negative and so difficult that when he came back, when he shut himself off, it wasn't just to try and blot the war out, it was blotting everything out.
When I met him, we were working together. We worked together and we were in college. You had this person that you sent off to Vietnam that you loved, okay? Then you got this whole other guy coming back, and you don't really know if this is a guy that I can love.
I'd say one cross word and he'd just blow up, and he'd break things, and he'd take walks. And if things are bothering him, if you ask him what's wrong, he'll take walks. He won't tell you. He won't relate. He won't get close.
Jerry has trouble dealing with death. He has a more cold approach to it. And I think a lot of that's from the war. He can't express those feelings.
I was rather apprehensive at first, upon returning. I spent a couple of months holed up in my mother's apartment in Akron, Ohio. I wasn't going anywhere. I had no desire to go anywhere outside of the apartment. I had sufficient stock of alcohol, marijuana, and television that I didn't have to go anywhere, as far as I was concerned. And my mother had some friends whose son was a Vietnam veteran, and eventually they sent him over to drag me out of the place, because he'd went through something similar. So he suggested we go places and do things. I almost had him talked into staying in the apartment with me rather than both of us going out again. He started enjoying it too,
I came home and talked to my mother. I didn't want to hear a thing about it. My dad shook my hand, was glad to have you back, and that's about it. My brothers were doing their own thing, and they didn't want to hear anything about it. So I just never talked about it. I didn't feel anyone would, I tried to talk about it, but it didn't seem like anybody really cared, or after a while I got to thinking nobody would understand.
Right, because we didn't get the big band treatment. You know, like when you was a kid, you was growing up, and you see these World War II movies. At the end of the war, man, everybody out, girl meet you, kiss you, and bands playing, parades. Man, we just snuck in. You know, we got off the planes, somebody seen us. You know, just didn't even get the welcome or thanks, guys. We appreciate it, although it was for nothing. We didn't even get that.
When I came back, my father thought I never really divulged what I did over there. He thought I was just an MP, like, you know, he was stationed in England and he just drove around and played little army games. And even I sent a lot of pictures back because I got interested in photography over there. And all the pictures were cute little Vietnamese women and cute little Vietnamese kids and little villages, pretty little villages, and it looked like a, you know, gee, nice place to visit, you know, like going to Mexico or something, you know, real scenic. And he thought I had a nice time over there. And he used to make the comments sort of like kidding about it. Well, I won my war, you know. It really kind of hurt me, but I didn't know. I never said anything to him. Then finally I told him I was really having troubles dealing with it, and he couldn't understand why. And I started telling him what happened to me over there, and he goes like, geez, like 12 years you never told me any of this. I never, you know, I thought you didn't have it that bad. You never sent anything in your letters. You never talked about it when I came back home. There's, you know, nothing to indicate that I had any, you know, was even in combat. He didn't even know that. I just says, Dad, didn't you think it was funny that I used to drive armored cars and armored jeeps around? And he goes like, no, it never sank in, you know. But he can't understand why I'm having the problem when he never really did. And I says, you know, you came back, you were the hero, you could do no wrong. You came back, you know, it took him 6 months to come back from England. And he was with the same guys almost 4 years. And he was 6 years in the service. So he says, you know, you got the friends over there, you get to talk to him. He still sees guys. In fact, last week he had a reunion of all the guys that were in his Air Force battalion.
There was less done for the Vietnam wives than any veteran, any group of wives in the history of American wars. Nothing. There was no group. There was not a big deal about you can go here to shop. We can take you here. We can expose you to this. We can give you that. And if need be, here's a place for you to stay. Yeah, they made it available that you didn't have to pay regular rent. But the wives and the children of the guys who were over there fighting, there were no special privileges granted. Maybe privilege is not a good word. There was no special provisions for them. We were just here. We were just here, struggling, except for a few instances where wives themselves got together. There was nothing done. Nothing as a whole. There was nothing done. No preparation to tell you what to expect when this guy comes home from Vietnam. It was not on the TV where you could go to say, let me help you, help him when he comes home.
Society put him in that position, okay? Drugs, women, life, death, whatever. And then they just snatch him up and bring him, drop him back in the States.
I think the things they experienced have to be opened up and talked about so that they can cope with things in the future.
I don't feel that I am in sync with the majority. Okay, the way I feel that society has told us we are supposed to view death, I don't feel I view it the same. I don't think I ever really had any feelings about life and death prior to going over there. You know, I knew that people had died, you know, and you were remorseful and stuff like this, but today I think while I was over there, you know, I viewed it much more callously. First week that I was there, I think they wanted us to experience what it was like to see death, go out and collect bodies and put them in body bags. The veterans from Vietnam experience death in a different way. Sometimes I feel guilty about it, my callousness of it, you know, because as my wife views it differently than I do. I don't know if it's because she's a woman or what, but she displays strong feelings for it, and it stays with her. Okay? And I don't really have any feelings about it, I don't think.
One night, there's an Army Reserve unit near us, and my wife and I were at a restaurant across the street, and all of a sudden, 3 Hueys landed, and it shook me up. Like, I just didn't like the sound at all. It really bothered me. I didn't have flashbacks from it or anything, but it still bothers me. In certain situations where I'm in, like when it rains out and when it drizzles, I hate that because that was like monsoon season, and I'm still uptight about that. I'm always on edge when it rains out, and real light drizzle and it's warm. Like the last couple of months we had before it got hot out, I had trouble sleeping almost every night. They actually have a name for it now. We called it post-Vietnam syndrome. Eventually the medical profession got it together and called it post-traumatic stress disorder. In 1971 we said it's a major problem. In 1980 they decided that, or 81, they decided that it might actually be a problem and they'll give disabilities to people for it.
Only thing they had open was janitorial service. All right, naturally I went for that. They was paying the most, and most of all the blacks was in that department, and I'm just coming from a black thing in Vietnam, so I said, let me get in it. But it was a dead-end job. I'm still there, and it's just a dead-end job. And although I know I'm capable of probably doing anything out there that anybody else can do, but that's the way it is.
Personally, I have a lot of resentment. I had an honorable discharge, but I was treated like dirt by a number of employers because while I think there was a stigma attached to Vietnam veterans for a while, that we were all insane drug addicts or killers, or any combination thereof, or all rolled into one, and we were totally unreliable. The media, not the news media, but television programming went a long way with that. And like every other week, Hawaii Five-0, which is not one of your better TV shows, had a berserk veteran. I spent 2 years in the service while they were, the other people were forwarding their careers, and by the time most veterans got out, things, a whole part of the life had changed. Things in the 60s and 70s were changing very, very quickly. They came back and they had to cope with the problem of being in combat or in that experience and the repression the culture put on them. Like the society didn't want anything to do with them. So they're trying to cope with that, and they're trying to carry on their own life. And they lost 2 years out of it. So I think a lot of them are, the ones I've talked to, like 10 years of their life is gone. They've wasted it just trying to get their head together.
When these men did come back and did get married, they were really on their own. I mean, I think their wives probably had no idea of why they acted the way they did at times, and they had probably at times very little idea of why they were acting that way, why they were having problems that seemed greater than other marriages. Now it's kind of come out in the open. These men really do have problems. These men really do need counseling. Family counseling might even be a good idea, but 10 years ago that wasn't the case. Well, the vet centers gives generally rap group counseling, but they're willing to do it. I mean, they're very open, and I think they're good places. I think one of the biggest problems is there really aren't enough of them. People don't necessarily know they exist. And there's still reluctance, I think, on a lot of people, whether veterans or not. People don't like to air their, problems in public. They don't like to go to somebody else.
We were having marital problems, which we thought were marital problems. Then finally, reading enough, I discovered it had nothing to do with our marriage relationship. It was just my Vietnam experience was causing all the problem. So we went over and there's a VA center in Oak Park, and went over there and talked to a few people, and you end up with those situations where you start telling them your problems and all the heads start going up and down. It's like they've heard the story 1,000 times before. You have nothing new to them. All the problems you have are all common. So you start feeling better about it. It's just like, well, I'm not crazy,
It's a common problem. And the thing nice about talking to a counselor like once a week now, he's a combat veteran, so, you know, there's a nice rapport there. Because most veterans tend not to trust people that are non-veterans about opening up that whole thing about them.
No, I never did get any counseling because I didn't feel I needed it. Like I said, when I got home, my family, my wife, they was all in my corner. They understanding and telling me, hey, it's okay, don't worry about it. Now this is where we start. Let's start from here. Let's do it now.
They really never adjust. They really never go back to being the same. Never, ever. You have this person that you sent off to Vietnam that you loved, okay? Then you got this whole other guy coming back, and you don't really know if this is a guy that I can love. And then you say, well, it's there. And if you're interested in your family, and if you're interested in the guy, and if you're interested in being a family, then you'll say, well, yeah, it's there. I just got to go down in there and get it. So you work at it, you get it. Some days you curse them out, some days you don't talk to them. But, you know, then the next day you go back and you tell them, okay, it's going to be all right, you know. And you work at things, you do things together. And the first thing that I did in order to build a security in him, to let him know that you go there and you worry about you getting back, was that when I had the first child, he was home with me and he went to the doctor with me for the 6-week exam. And they send you to family planning clinic. And the doctor wanted to give me the birth control. And he was there with me. And I told him, I said, no, I don't need any birth control because my husband's going to Vietnam. So I don't need it. I won't be involved in any sexual activity, so I don't need that. We'll hold that for when he comes back. Okay, that was my first step at trying to let him know, hon, you go and you take care of you, and I'm going to be here waiting faithfully for you. When you come back, then we'll pick up where you left off. I wrote every day. I'd mail a letter in the morning, and I'd mail a letter at night. We took pictures, my sisters and my brother and my mother. I took pictures, all with my raggedy clothes on, you know, with everything to let him know, to send him pictures to let him know what we were doing at home. When he came home and he was a stranger, then I remember all those things that I had did and all those things that you'd gone through. And he says, well, you don't throw this out the window just because he's weird. We talked about Vietnam. All of his friends that come, I become friends with, purposely. All of his Vietnam friends especially, I became friends with them purposely so that I could know from somebody else what went on over there, so that when he wanted to talk about it or when he needed to talk about it, he didn't have to seek out another veteran to talk about it, or he didn't have to necessarily seek counseling. He could tell me, you know. Marriage is as basic as you can be, and if you can't tell your basic partner about things, then it's all for naught. So,
I mean, I think if people saw Apocalypse Now, which, you know, was just sort of a real surreal kind of movie, when Bill saw it, he said that's what it was like to be there. He said it was, you know, to you it might have been surreal. For us, that was what the war was like. It was a, you know, very crazy, strange experience, and the guys came back a little bit crazy. I wasn't there, and I didn't experience it. And when they talk, I realize what they went through was something that's unique to them, that I'll never, you know, be able to understand to the degree or feel to the degree that they felt. And that I, you know, and I let Bill know that. And I, you know, respect his experiences and the camaraderie he has with the guys, that I'm, you know, I'm not jealous of it. It's a different kind of camaraderie than he's going to have with me. I mean, if Bill didn't have his friends to talk to, I don't think he'd be as together as I really think he is now. Then, you know, they're a very important part of his life.
Be afraid. Be afraid. That's what they sell the vets. Be afraid to go for a job because you're a baby killer, a dope fiend. Be afraid of this. Be afraid of that. And they just recluse. He has a hard time getting close to people. Even me. When I need him most, sometimes he pushes me away. He likes to rescue me. He likes to protect me. But then if I want to go and give him a hug, he wants to push away. I don't think there are too many people that have been through all the stuff that we have been through in 12 years that are still together. So maybe it's going to get easier soon.
I'm a nice guy, you know. I'm a family person, you know. I like animals. I like being married. I remember for a long time I felt that I didn't deserve anything nice. I didn't deserve a nice family, a nice wife, a nice home, nothing, because I lost the war, you know. I was a loser. Losers don't get anything. And finally realizing that it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. I didn't cause us to lose any war. I did my job, I did it good. I'm proud of that. You know, I have friends that were never in the service that try to do macho things all the time to try to show everybody that they're a man. And I kept thinking, you know, the most manly thing you could do is to kill somebody. And I've done that, and I don't think that's anything to be proud of. It's a situation where you had no choice. I think to be a man is to have a family, to be a husband and father. That's a man. I felt good about it. It was probably the best feeling I had since coming back from the war. Was when my son was born. After the excitement of having him, like the weight and the responsibility started to drag me down. I've seen so many little children killed over in my case, not so much in combat, a lot of traffic accidents. I remember seeing little kids about my son's age now. I remember seeing one of them with his head run over by an APC. It took me a while to get used to him and feel safe having him. I always wanted to get distance away from him because I kept thinking, you know, back in my mind, before I knew what was causing it, that don't get close because something's going to happen to him. You know, it took me a while where now I can even let him go out and play by himself and not worry about it.
Yes, I have a Little League team, ages 8 to 12. Most of the guys are 6th, 7th graders. A lot of guys look up to me as a father image, you know, because I do take time and aside and try to be involved in their lives. Even if they have a problem at home, I try to sit down with their mother and talk to them, see if we can work something out, because I try to point out to her that the importance of this young fella trying to be competitive in this world, because that's what it's all about now.
They'll come to the window 50 times a day. Is Kurt home from work yet? And I'll tell them, you see the car? Then he ain't here. And you'll see them out there fussing and fighting with each other. He gets out there with them and he'll curse them, tell them, you know, you ain't trying, you're not doing this, and they get mad at him, and he gets mad at them, and he'll say, every year he says, I'm going to quit. But come April, he's right out there in the rain with them.
I always tell them, stay in school, man. Get that education, do what you can, do the best you can, and you won't have to worry about that service tip, because if you do, it'll be your choice, not somebody else's. See, that's what I try to put them. If they want to be in the service, fine. I don't try to tell them not to go or it's bad, because it's not. It's what you make it. And if that's your choice, you go in there and do the best you can at it.
The other thing is Agent Orange. And the other agent, defoliants they had over there, they still haven't even claimed that they're responsible for it. They want to say that, you know, it's not really a toxin, it's not really as bad as you think it was. There's no way to prove that it causes all the defects that people are claiming it does, the kidney failure and the birth defects and that. So they're saying since there's not a 100% guarantee, we're not going to treat it. You know.
I worry about the possibility of birth defects. Supposedly causes liver problems. I had suffered a liver problem that I was doing an internship at a VA hospital at the time I suffered it. I was tested for hepatitis and mono, and it was undiagnosed. They couldn't find any type of liver disease that I had, but I did have a problem with my liver. They were not able to diagnose it. And it cleared up in 10 days. No idea what it was. So I don't know what effect it could have had on me, or what effect it does have on me right now. And I'm worried about it.
I was over there during that time, they was doing that spraying. But they were saying that we weren't in that area. Okay, like my baby, Mina, when she was born, she had a heart defect. She had to have a heart operation And I don't know if that was the cause of it, but who can say?
And with Agent Orange, you had Agent White, Agent Blue, Agent Pink, Agent Purple, Agent Green, Agent Red, which is still classified. You know, the chemical cocktail, as the VA calls it. How do you know it's Agent Orange causing these problems? It could be any number of chemicals. Is there one of the things that they said for a while? We said, well, we don't care what chemical it was. The government administered them to us, and we want the government to take care of the problem. If we have to recognize this problem among Vietnam veterans, their offspring, and their widows, it's going to cost us billions of dollars into the next century. And that is the bottom line on herbicide exposure, that they don't want to pay the money, and it is going to cost them an arm and a leg.
Because when you take a person's right away to procreate, you are really dealing with something. There are so many veterans afraid to have children, afraid to form relationships because of how they're scarred.
What's the biggest problem I face today? I don't know. I think it's economic, really. I think I'm coping with all the other problems I had. You know, I know what caused the problems I had before was the war, and I'm coping with them, and I know how to deal with it. I think right now my biggest problem is economic, which is something else left over from Vietnam. You know, we're still paying for that war.
A lot of veterans have not examined or talked with anyone else to this day about what they did. Some may feel secure in the fact that they haven't, or insecure in the fact that they haven't communicated their problems with other people. And not everyone, you know, it's not looking, you know, like, I don't go along with the idea of like walking time bombs ready to explode at any time. I think that's an exaggeration of the problem, but there are a number of veterans yet to experience post-traumatic stress disorder or what have you. And budgets and services are shrinking rather than expanding to meet those needs. That's something that really concerns me.
I feel I paid a price in a sense of having my children knowing and having the knowledge of me being a soldier and fighting for part of this country, so when they grow up, they can say, hey, this is my country too. My father fought for this, and his father, and his father, and we weren't just in the kitchen, you know, serving up soup during wartime. We was right out front with everybody else.
Vietnam veterans who do speak out should be listened to. That they're not going to find a lot of Vietnam veterans telling people to go back, to have another war like that. That they can, you know, try and pipe up the patriotism all they want. If they listen to the majority of veterans who came back from Vietnam, they don't want to go back. They don't want their children to go back. I feel in raising my children, by the time they're that age, they're going to make a lot of their own decisions. I would do everything in my power to hope that their judgment would be to not want to go in a war like that, and I'll support them in any kind of resistance. They take it scares me. It scares me that my son might be in prison because of it. Or my son might have to live in a foreign country, you know, if it was a similar situation. But I'd prefer to see either of those than to see them go off to a war like that. I think people have to be patient with Vietnam veterans. I think they should go out of their way to employ them. I think they should give them every break in the world they can have, because they've really, really, you know, been through hell, and that they should be respected, you know, and really treated, you know, treated a little special.
Can the wounds be healed? Can the memories be washed? Can the toppled dreams build again? If you shed the guilt, that will help to heal